Extinct human species, evolution's unsuccessful competitors. Imagine the world tens of thousands of years ago. No cities, no internet, no countries. Only icy winds, dark forests, giant beasts, and people. But the strangest thing is that there wasn't just one human species back then. The Earth was shared by several human races. Some were stronger than us. Others were smarter hunters. Still others survived where modern humans would die in a week. And yet, today, only we remain. What happened to the rest? Why did evolution choose Homo sapiens? And who were these vanished competitors of humanity? This is the story of the lost branches of humanity, about those who almost became masters of the planet, but disappeared forever. The beginning of the great race. Millions of years ago, Africa wasn't a desert. There were dense forests, vast plains, and endless herds of animals. That's where the first human ancestors appeared. But evolution doesn't create perfect creatures on the first try. It's like it's experimenting. Some species emerge, others die out. Still others become dead ends. Essentially, human history is a graveyard of nature's failed experiments. Today, most people think that we appeared immediately after the apes, but it was much more complicated. Once upon a time, the following walked the earth: Australopithecines, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo floresiensis, Homo naledi, and dozens more species about which we know very little. Some of them lived simultaneously. Imagine, 40,000 years ago, you could have encountered not only another human, but also another human species. Australopithecines, almost humans. Australopithecines were some of our earliest known ancestors. They were already walking on two legs, but still strongly resembled apes. About the height of a child, long arms, small brains, but they took the first giant step. They began to walk upright. This was a revolution for evolution. Free hands allowed them to carry food, use stones, defend themselves, create primitive tools. But Australopithecus did not become masters of the world. They were too slow, too weak. Their brains could not yet compete with those of future humans. Over time, the climate changed. Forests disappeared. More and more open spaces appeared. And in the savannah, only those who could think faster survived. Homo habilis, the handy man, then Homo habilis appeared. This was something new. He began making real stone tools. Sharp stones became humanity's first weapons. Now it was possible to butcher meat, break bones, harvest animal brains, defend against predators. The brain began to grow. It was precisely protein-rich, meat that may have accelerated the development of intelligence. But Homo habilis was still weak. It rarely hunted itself. More often, it ate the scraps left by lions and hyenas. Imagine this. A group of ancient humans waits for the lions to leave a mammoth carcass, and only then quickly runs up before the hyenas arrive. It was life on the edge. Homo erectus, the first great conqueror, and then a true monster of the ancient world, appeared. Homo erectus. It was almost human. It knew how to hunt, used fire, created complex tools, built primitive camps, was the first to leave Africa. Homo erectus became the first human species to conquer the planet. They reached Europe, China, Indonesia. Some scientists believe that Erectus was the first to speak, not like modern humans, but well enough for hunting and the transmission of knowledge. And the most frightening thing is that this species proved incredibly resilient. Homo erectus existed for almost 2 million years. For comparison, modern humans have existed for about 300,000 years. It turns out that Erectus was far more successful than us. But even they disappeared. Why? Because evolution never stops. Neanderthals, the strongest people on Earth. Now we move on to humanity's most famous rivals. Neanderthals. If you saw them in the forest at night, you would think they were monsters. They were shorter, incredibly broad, very muscular, with enormous arms, with a powerful rib cage. They were survival machines. Neanderthals could survive cold that would kill an ordinary person. They lived in glacial Europe among mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, cave lions, and they hunted them almost hand to hand. Many Neanderthal skeletons have horrific fractures, as if they were constantly fighting giant animals. But the most amazing thing is that they weren't stupid. The old myth of stupid cavemen has long been debunked. Neanderthals buried the dead, cared for the sick, used jewelry, possibly painted, could speak. Their brains were sometimes even larger than ours. So why did they lose? The war between sapiens and Neanderthals. Around 45,000 years ago, a new species arrived in Europe, Homo sapiens, U.S., and then began one of the most mysterious stories of humanity. Two intelligent species met on the same planet. Perhaps they lived side by side for thousands of years. Sometimes they traded. Sometimes they fought. Sometimes they interbred. Yes, modern humans partially carry Neanderthal DNA. This means there were children between the species. But gradually, the Neanderthals disappeared. There are several theories. First, sapiens were smarter. Our species was better at communicating, forming alliances, passing on knowledge, inventing new technologies. Even a small advantage becomes fatal over thousands of years. Second, climate. The weather changed dramatically. Forests disappeared. Animals migrated. Neanderthals were too specialized for a cold world, and sapiens adapted more easily. Third, disease. When two species are isolated for a long time, they have different immune systems. Perhaps Homo sapiens brought the diseases that wiped out the Neanderthals. Much like the Europeans later wiped out the peoples of the Americas with infections. Fourth, slow dissolution. Some scientists believe that Neanderthals didn't disappear completely. They simply interbred with sapiens, and some of them continue to live within us. Denisovans, ghost people, and now the creepiest part. There's a species of human we know almost nothing about. Denisovans. Scientists have found a piece of a finger, a few teeth, a few bones, and that's it. But DNA analyses showed this was a separate species of human. It turns out that an entire humanity disappeared almost without a trace. The craziest thing is that many people in Asia and Oceania still carry Denisovan DNA. For example, some Tibetans received a gene from them that helps them live high in the mountains. In other words, an extinct species still influences modern humans. The hobbits of Flores Island, Now one of the strangest species, Homo floresiensis. They were found on the island of Flores in Indonesia. They were about a meter tall. Scientists nicknamed them hobbits. I imagine small people with primitive tools living among giant lizards and ancient animals. How did they come about? One theory is that ordinary people came to the island and shrank over time. This sometimes happens on islands. Large animals become smaller. Small animals become larger. Isolation alters evolution. But the hobbits also disappeared.
Живут на Земле крошечный промежуток времени. Настолько крошечный, что даже если бы история современного человека была длиннее в 100 раз, она все равно началась бы спустя аж 35 миллионов лет после вымирания динозавров. И это мы считаем самые смелые оценки, согласно которым первые Homo sapiens появились в Африке 300 тысяч лет назад. Чтобы эволюционировать в любителей аниме и Fortnite, род Homo прошел длинный путь, за время которого по Земле успели погулять и полностью исчезнуть другие версии человека. О популярных неандертальцах вы наверняка наслышаны, но были и другие. Прежде чем мы о них поговорим, стоит освежить в памяти наше с вами родовое древо. В упрощенном виде сначала это крошечные, похожие на мышей млекопитающие, потом обезьяны, потом человек прямоходящий, а потом, собственно, Homo sapiens. В реальности наше с вами родовое древо гораздо сложнее и до сих пор является предметом споров. Так, к примеру, древнейшим плацентарным млекопитающим, рождающим детенышей плюс-минус в стиле современных людей и прочих млекопитающих, сейчас считается Juramaya sinensis. Крошечное создание, похожее на крысу, бегало по территории нынешнего Китая не 30, не 60 и даже не 100 миллионов лет назад. Возраст находки в журнале Nature оценили аж в 160 миллионов лет. На секундочку, это делает крыску даже по самым скромным оценкам на 70 миллионов лет старше тираннозавра. Так что история нашего вида началась чуть ли не одновременно с эпохой динозавров. Ну и как следствие, фраза о том, что человек произошел от крысы, а не от обезьяны, начинает иметь смысл. Правда, стоит помнить, что крысой в современном понимании Juramaya sinensis определенно не было. Дальше еще интереснее. Традиционно считается, что пути крыс и обезьян разошлись на зверушке по имени Пургаториус. Она появилась где-то 66 миллионов лет назад, успела повидать динозавров и сейчас числится древнейшим приматоподобным существом. Потом был невероятный Ахицебус, первая настоящая обезьянка, живущая на деревьях. Ее возраст 55 миллионов лет, и это уже вполне себе современно выглядящий примат, помести которого в современный зоопарк и никто бы не заметил. Тут пути предков людей и крыс окончательно разошлись.